Um, all right, welcome everyone. Very excited to start this first event of the Amsterdam Miro user group. And while we start this session, we hope to kickstart very inspiring community, which is very forward-looking, making use of how do we collaborate with each other. So we'd like to collaborate on how we collaborate. And it's good to see that we immediately have quite a big crowd of people in the session, but also in terms of people who registered for the Miro user group. So also, if you haven't done that already, feel free to do so, as we'll be hosting more of these types of events and also start to collaborate maybe in other means with each other. As we start this session, my name is Sander Kruidwagen. Together with Miguel Cabral Guerra, we're hosting the Miro user group and also this first event. And we also have Piera here who will do visual recording of this session. Check in with her later as well, but it's good to see, very cool to see that she has already started. So you can see in her background already some first results, and we'll check in with her during the session. So that's us, but we're also very curious to see who is joining this first event. And we've asked you to already tell us a bit more about yourself in the Miro board. And Miguel, maybe you can have a look and reflect a bit on what you see happening.
Sounds good. So for those of you who haven't added your name on the board and location, you can do so by clicking over here on the comment feature and then clicking anywhere on the map. So to tell us where you're from, what you do, and where you work. So for now, I can see we have a lot of people from the Netherlands, which is expected. I mean, it is the Amsterdam Miro user group. Some people from the UK, and also just other places across Europe. So I see we had one from Austria and also in Germany, I see. Munich. In terms of use cases, you can also tell us what you do, what you use Miro for. So just take one of these dots and then place it anywhere on under the box that applies to you. For now, it's quite evenly distributed. So people use it for meetings and workshops, ideation and brainstorming, quite a bit for research and design, and a bit for strategy and mapping too.
Cool, very nice to see. As people are still active, maybe we'll see some more results, and we'll also have a look afterwards after the session to see who joined. So feel free to continue that, and also feel free to explore the board further if you like, and we'll also come back on that in a minute. First, some practical things about this meeting, as this is a meeting in itself. So it's the first event of our Miro user group, and the aim of this group, as we're now entering the lobby of this house that we built in Miro, is to come together to share with each other knowledge on collaboration, actually, both physical and virtual. And we'd like to bring people together from different backgrounds, different disciplines, to share knowledge, to learn from each other, and to collaborate on topics related to collaboration. And today's session is focused on this concept of meetings, good meetings that are both productive and enjoyable. So we think a very relevant topic to kickstart this community. And we have some nice experts to tell us a bit more about that and to provide their perspectives. I'll come to that later. Our aim for the Miro user group is to have both physical and remote events. Of course, in light of today's situation, this is a fully remote event. We'll make use of Zoom. Everyone is free to open their cameras. We actually invite you to do so we can also get a feel for who's actually joining us in this call. We have muted everyone to keep it somewhat orderly in this session, but we can also unmute someone in case you have a question. So if you'd like to speak up or have something to ask, feel free to raise your hand either in this Zoom call or put the question in the chat so we can give you a chance to ask your question, or you can also use the Miro board for that. Let's see, we're making use of the Miro board, like we said before. And let us know if you don't have the link yet, we can still provide it. And as you can see, we're making use of a house metaphor in this Miro board. And we used, we got the inspiration for this by a board that we saw from the Buenos Aires Service Jam group. So we'd like to give a reference to them. They called it La Casa for obvious reasons. We're very enthusiastic about it. We think it works very well as a metaphor to combine the virtual and the physical. We use the different rooms to go through the different stages of this session and with different purposes. And it's a good guide to go through this session, we think. Let's see what you think. We're also curious to hear your thoughts. In the session, Miguel will keep a close eye on the board and give a shout out if anything interesting is happening there. Agenda, finally, very important for any meeting is to have a good agenda. And in this case, we're now in the introduction. So we're about to close this off. And then 10 past 12, we'll go into the panel discussion. We'll have about 30 minutes with the panel. We'll have some interactivity with you as well through the Miro board and potentially also in the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. We'll take some time at the end also to go through any unanswered or open questions that you might have at the end. And okay, I see a question to provide the Miro board. I'll do that in a minute. And then, yeah, we'll do a wrap up at the end, and we aim to close this session at 5 to 1, so that we have enough time to go to our next meetings. That's it for now. If anything is unclear, feel free to ask. And I'd like to continue to the panel discussion and introduce you our guests of today. We have a great panel of experts from different disciplines who can provide very interesting perspectives on the topic of meetings. And I'd like to introduce, therefore, first of all, Ieva Jacko. She's R&D portfolio manager, R&D portfolio delivery manager at Randstad. Through her work and expertise in the utilization and integration of collaboration, design, and development software, she helps individuals, teams, and organizations to adopt agile ways of working and achieve better results. Then we have, so welcome, Ieva. Dan Williams, UX design lead at Enreach, a company that is also focused on collaborative technology, which, as we all know, is a very complex and challenging topic, and to which Dan, with a background, design background and creative mindset, brings an innovative spirit together with his team of UX and UI specialists. And finally, we have Alexander Pronk joining us, entrepreneur and Scaleup Pro, and as someone who has founded companies and is also helping other companies to scale, he is very experienced in forming the right organizational conditions, disciplines, and culture for effective and productive meetings. So we're very happy to have you all joining the session. Hopefully everything is working well for you, so we can start this discussion. And I'd like to start with a very, well, maybe simple question, just to get us warmed up. Okay, let's ask you the question first, actually. How many hours did you spend last week on meetings? And Ieva, I'd like to start with you, if you can briefly answer that.
I have done my homework. I did 15 hours of productive meetings in the last week.
Okay, good to hear. Dan, what's your number?
For me, it's about 50% of my time. So it's, yeah, about 20, 25 hours average.
And Alex?
I think I'm around 21 hours last week.
Okay, that's sort of in the same range. And actually, before I continue with the next question, I'd like to already involve the audience. And maybe some of you have already seen it. If you go to the workshop room, and Miguel can also help you there.
Yeah, I'm going to bring everyone to me, so you can all see it.
Indeed, I see lots of pointers there.
So over here you have the same question. How much time did you spend on meetings last week? And you can just, again, move it out to the answer that best fits you.
Yeah, so while you're all answering the question, I'd like to continue with the panelists and ask you how much of those meeting hours that you had last week do you feel were productive? So Ieva, of those 15 hours, what would you say was productive?
Yeah, I think I mentioned all 15
Okay,
productive. Yeah.
that's very good. So I definitely come back to that in a second. Dan?
I'd say about 2/3. Like if you include workshops and these kind of group activities, then it's very productive. But there's a lot of recurring turn up meetings, so they're sometimes not as productive.
And Alex?
I would love to be able to say, like Ieva, that all 100% of my meetings are productive, but I think it's the nature of every meeting that I have that some are productive and others aren't, and it's about learning of those unproductive meetings to see how I can grow in the next week.
So how much would you say of the 21?
Of the 21, I would say about 14 hours.
Okay, so that's sort of in the same range as Dan had, so about 2/3. If I look at the Miro boards, some people are still filling this in, but you can see an amount of time spent on meetings between, 4, 5, and 20, 24. But the average around 16 also, and productive around between 50 and 80%. Okay, that's most of it around 50, which is okay. So half of the meeting is very productive. In this case, Dan, if I ask you, so what's your experience? You already mentioned a bit, but what's your experience in terms of productivity of meetings? Why aren't all meetings productive?
It all depends whether there's a kind of structure around them and there's a purpose or an outcome. A lot of regular meetings, things like refinements, Scrum meetings go into kind of autopilot mode. So you kind of get a bit neglectful of why you're there and what the outcome is. You can easily get sidetracked. So sticking on point is one of the main ones.
So would you say that meetings that are on autopilot, so which basically have maybe a certain rhythm, have the bigger risk of being unproductive?
Yes and no. It really depends on the team and the dynamics. Like sometimes if you're really used to it and you're fluid to it, you can have half the time and just get through it. Other ones can just get pulled apart. And then you end up booking another meeting to do the same meeting again.
Alex, what's your take on this? Do you have any?
Well, I think for a large part, it's about the frustrations in meetings that people don't talk about. I mean, we can all recognize the situation where you're in a meeting, whether it's virtual or in real life, and you're waiting for one person because he or she is late. When that person comes in, she or he sits down and says, "Oh, wait, I want to get a cup of coffee first," and then ask, "What are we actually going to talk about?" And these are all things that sort of show the frustrations behind it. Someone is late, someone is unprepared, someone doesn't commit to the actual meeting. And then I think normally those roles are divided amongst a lot of people, but those frustrations tend to build up. And then at some point people are like, well, this is not useful anymore. And I'm not going to be part of this meeting, or I'm just going to zone out and sit back and just wait and see what happens. It's not my responsibility.
And do you have a tip or tricks or techniques for uncovering those frustrations?
I think it starts with making those frustrations heard. So like make sure you mention the elephant in the room. I mean, it's hard, but it's important to make sure that you talk to people about what do we expect from one another of these meetings. And as Dan said, I love it that he said that the purpose of a meeting is often not discussed. Why are we doing this? Even if it's a repetitive autopilot meeting.
Ieva, as you mentioned, basically all of your hours were productive. So what's your secret to keeping them?
Well, I will first reflect to Dan's note about the recurring meetings. Actually, I'm running a couple of UX, CX research teams, and you know, even I love stand-ups and kind of check-ins and connecting with people. We skip that. It didn't make sense. We just burning hours without any really purpose. And that actually I got hearing and asking and gathering the feedback from the team, meaning do we really see the value of it? And rather, you know, shaping this into having once a week, you know, contentful discussions rather than useless, let's say, in the sense stand-ups, which in other contexts, as a, you know, product development team where you have maybe research developer, a business analyst, product owner, would make sense. So it's actually, you know, the productivity comes into distinguishing what are the purpose of the meetings, which meetings are recurring even or not recurring necessary, time boxing it. We have a kind of agreements within the teams called up to us, where we say, all right, so we time box meetings up to 25 or 50 minutes, which means, you know, you come to with a mindset that you have to really think about, you know, what am I going to deliver to the group or to one-on-one, what the group, who are the members who needs to be participating in that meeting. So I mean, 80% of success is preparations, you know, connecting, understanding the people, understanding what tools we are going to use, and really the nailing down the purpose of recurring meetings or one-on-one meetings or ad hoc meetings or workshops, with a group of people, not on your own, but with everybody who's involved there.
Okay, very good to hear. Very good tips also. So preparation is key. Do you make someone specifically responsible for the preparation of any meeting, basically? Do you always have one owner?
That's a good question. I mean, it depends. If it is a workshop, you involve everybody. If it's a broader discussion, technical discussion, you involve everybody to build the agenda. To even maybe write up some document for, let's say, people who are extroverts. As you know that, you know, extroverts needs, let's say, more time to preparation and talk contentfully on the call. So back to your question, you involve everybody, but you assign someone to lead the preparations and the meeting. So that would be the at least that would work. That worked for me, or that worked for us. And you consider everyone's opinion, gathering the agenda and walking to the meeting in a sense.
Okay. Dan, do you have any tips or experiences in having good preparation for meetings?
I used to, but I think it's kind of nice that I don't have to worry too much about the preparation. So when we went remote, there used to be a lot of formalities in prepping stuff, and that kind of a lot of the attendees are kind of more forgiving. So I think it gets a bit more flexible. You do get to know each other and the places they live in a little bit better. And if there's no kind of room booking system or any constraints of that kind of thing, then it doesn't matter whether you end it in 40 minutes instead of, you know, dragging it out for an hour, because a lot of people also do that. You know, they default 1 hour, but it could be 30 minutes, probably should be 30 minutes. Some of it could be an email, you know. A lot of people are using Slack and these kind of messaging systems. So it's, you know, you got to realize, what is the meeting for? Is it really to align, or is it to get an output? I think that's the important thing. Because, I mean, for example, I'm in communication all day with most of the team. So it's only when there's a trigger or kind of a reason that we hop online and do the meetings.
So it comes back again to the purpose of a meeting, to decide also, okay, what's the most effective approach, most productive approach. Alex, I'm curious to hear your take, but I'm also curious, okay, what's the trade-off between preparing, which also costs time, and effort versus the productivity of the meeting, which of course is helped by good preparation, but where's the trade-off point?
I think preparation is a mindset in itself. I mean, anytime you start a meeting, even if you have a set agenda and you go through it every week or every day or every month, and you just take that agenda for granted, but you don't look at it anymore, then something's going wrong there. And the mindset of owning a meeting is something that most people tend to forget. When you are in a meeting, it's your time that you're putting in there. So even by just simply looking at an agenda and thinking about, okay, what am I going to say when I'm coming up to this point? I think that's preparation enough if it works. If it's a larger meeting where you have to prepare an actual topic, then I'd say make sure you sit down and do your project and deliver the results and make sure that all your colleagues can give the input beforehand. But the mindset should be, I own this meeting. It's my time I'm putting into this meeting, so I should own it. And I should want to walk away with an effective and efficient result at the end of this session. And by just simply going there and being like, okay, well, I don't know what we're going to talk about, and then be frustrated at the end, then I think you don't own the actual meeting, and you basically don't own your own time.
So what's your sort of standard practice if you have meetings, even the ones that you don't host yourself or don't organize yourself?
I try to prepare every meeting. And I specifically say try because these days I realize that we have a sort of society at work where we try to fill up our agenda. We have 8 hours, so we can have 8 hours of meetings, and we walk away from one meeting to the next meeting, and we also think it's kind of nice to say, oh, I have my whole day booked with meetings, but in the end, you don't have time to prepare for the next meeting, and you don't have time to process the meeting you just finished. So how many of us actually walk away from a meeting and then say, let's take another 30 minutes just for myself to process. What did I hear? What did we talk about? What did we decide? And what are we going to do as follow-up? And should I already deliver on the things I promised?
Yeah. So do you block those? Do you block that time as well? Around
I do. Yeah.
Ieva, is that something that you recognize?
Yes, I do recognize. I usually, make sure that I have breathing time between the meetings, if there's any. If I don't own the meeting, I always question myself what I will deliver there. What is the purpose for me to walk in? And I choose. We have a very flexible mindset. I mean, if you don't have a role in the meeting, you don't walk in, and you spend your time more productively in some other items. So that's kind of mentality I'm using when I have to choose. In the end, I think about this very pragmatically. One passive member in the group decreases, group's performance in 30 to 40%. So me sitting there and maybe even impacting the group could make it work. So I use this kind of approach, being thinking about it, walking in the meeting, and being really effective and goal driven mindset.
Okay.
I love that, Ieva. This fact that you're saying, if I don't own the meeting and I don't play a role in there, I shouldn't be there. And just making that heard to your team members, I think, should be vital.
Yeah, I think it's open conversation. Whoever invited you, he or she should have had a conversation with you,
Exactly.
The expectations. And if you have no expectations, so you start asking yourself, why am I there? Why am I inviting there? And my instinct would be saying, hey, by the way, on the chat, why did you invite me in this meeting? What do you expect me from there? Do I have to deliver some contentful conversation, explaining requirements, or facilitating, or taking the minutes? So what is my role there? And if you don't have these answers, then rather question yourself. Just don't go there.
Okay, clear. And then would you say that this idea of meetings and preparation and reasons for being there, that has changed over the past half year with the conditions in which we're living?
Well, if you think about, if we're spending half of our time in meetings anyway, if you're spending, half an hour prepping for each of these meetings, that doesn't leave you much freedom. So I think it's quite important to acknowledge your own role and purpose in the room. If you don't need to be there, don't be there. There are other ways you can get up to speed, recordings, transcriptions, these kind of things. So I think there's a whole ecosystem building up around these kind of video collaboration platforms that will facilitate this kind of role or purpose. I mean, it'd be really good if you could have a kind of CC on a meeting. So it means it's optional, but you'll still get briefed or updated or see the output afterwards. Yeah. So we're certainly not there yet, but you can start to see these little startups and plugins and things emerging.
But is that something that has been triggered by the fact that more people now do meetings online, less physical, maybe?
I mean, it's not new. Everybody's been doing remote meetings and conference systems for a long, long time. It's just become way more acceptable, I think. It's just, so it's open to a wider audience, and a lot of people are getting more accustomed to it. Before, if you were having a Skype job interview or that kind of thing, you'd arrange your house for like half a day just to make sure you're in the right context, and that's all kind of calmed a bit now. And I think you're not going to get a one-size-fits-all solution. I mean, there's Google's got another one, Zoom, Teams. They're all kind of leading, but you're starting to see these niche players that are kind of they're aiming for a certain horizontal, like medical sector or classrooms. Classrooms is a massive one because suddenly all the children were staying at home, so they had to find a decent enough solution to carry on that context.
But my assumption is that most of these tools and software work mostly in the digital meeting space, so to say. But what about if you go back to physical meetings, would it still work? And this idea of hybrid meetings where you're meeting both with people online and some people maybe together in one room. Alex, maybe you can.
I think it works as long as you make the right agreements how you want to collaborate. So what are the rules and roles that you're having? Currently with one of my companies, I'm in a full strategic week with one of my offices in Beijing and my other office here in the Netherlands. And we have 5 people on the one hand, we have 10 people on the other hand. And we just have to make sure that it works. And we have the same goal that we want to achieve at the end, but we need to make sure that we have the right systems in place. So how can we collaborate when it comes to digital, attendance, but also tools like Miro to make sure that we can brainstorm together as if we're in the same room. And I think what is mostly important is that you first of all recognize the limitations, but second of all consider it as if it is a normal meeting.
Okay, good point. Where I actually also would like to invite our audience to provide some input. So when talking about this concept of hybrid meetings, Miguel, maybe you can point everyone to the right spot in the Miro boards. Maybe you can provide some perspective here. So is this something that you encounter a lot, this concept of hybrid meetings? So meetings where some people might be together in one room physically and others might be joining by a call, or also be together in one room, but then also having to use video call. So do you have this experience? And also what, in your opinion, is crucial to host these types of meetings? So what is working well? What are tools or techniques or tips that you can apply or that you have experienced to work very well? And finally, also, what's the role that Miro can play here? Or is already playing? So is there anything that you've experienced in terms of features or that you would like to see or that you expect could play a very important role here? And as you're giving inputs, we can continue the discussion. I'll check back, Miguel, with you in a minute. Ieva, you're also using Miro in your work, correct?
Yes, correct. And before I maybe jump into tools and techniques and tips and how we can make it more natural, I really want to mention the purpose of the meetings in general. The meeting was and is for us to understand the people. So, you know, the spoken communication is 7%, and body language is like 55% of, you know, understanding, the giving contextual understanding. So when we speak about hybrid meetings online and some people being offline, what is very important is to have that as natural as possible environment with the people who are not present in the same room. Meaning, and I think it's a very, you know, one of the frustrations that I could mention, you know, having really good connection, having cameras on. Have you ever had a call with that 10 people tiles? So it's speaking with some nice icons, and that's I think it's crucial to understand in the virtual meeting setup, so that we have to create as much natural environment, and for that, as a precondition, having good internet, a good tools, tools like Miro, tools like Zoom, tools like Hangouts, or whatever else there is. Actually be ready and be technologically literal. So knowing how to use the tools is making a huge difference. Removing that gap between virtual, not virtual, you know, because if you have role, if you have agenda, if you have common, you know, understanding of the common goal, then there is no difference if it's virtual or not. It's like sitting with you, Sandra, and talking, you know, about this in one room, if that technology allows it.
Good. Yeah. So having the right setting to actually be on the same page with everyone, whether you're remote or physically together,
Indeed.
And then have the right purpose and conditions for the meeting itself.
Yeah. And knowing the tools, I think the challenge, and especially when the COVID-19 hit, some companies or some people were not prepared for that. So, you know, it's a bit of catching up with the technology. You know, we use Miro, as I use Miro. You know, I can't call myself expert, but I know how to navigate and I know how to train the people to utilize during the meetings. But for some, you know, it was you know, they had to spend time to actually find the right tools and then learn them. So it kind of understanding and learning and helping others to breach that technological gap to create the virtual, you know, meetings very effective and seamless.
Yeah. Indeed, good points. Then, is there anything you would like to add here in terms of also how tools can facilitate or help, or how you can make it as easy as possible for people to make use of the technology?
Well, I was going to say it's quite nice to see an analog whiteboard that Pierre is drawing on, because we've got digital whiteboards and people use them for the first month, and then it just turns into another monitor, very expensive one with crappy contrast. But you're seeing a lot of these kind of virtual reality type propositions coming forward, where they spend a lot of the GPU power recreating avatars of people instead of the actual collaboration space. It should be on the target that collaborating, and the kind of avatars should just be similar to what Miro is doing. Why waste time, you know, recreating a three-dimensional person in the room? You know what that person looks like. And I also saw a solution of sharing whiteboards where you had to aim your phone at the whiteboard and both sides, and then it would kind of relay changes. But I don't know anybody that would actually use their phone to stare at a camera at a whiteboard for an hour during a meeting. That's like the worst job in the world. But where Miro kind of steps in, it's not just about whiteboarding, it's a hell of a lot more. It's good to have the narrative. One thing I've learned, or the team's learned from using Miro, is to have this kind of narrative. Start here, here's a place for this, here's a place for that. So they kind of move around the board, and you get a sense of progress and getting towards the end. So that's kind of useful. I mean, this was built on top of things like, I think Prezi was huge in its day, but that was more aimed at the PowerPoint market rather than the whiteboard space.
Mhm.
And I think one of the biggest compliments was we did one workshop in Almere with like 2 or 3 dial-ins, and we got quite an expensive conferencing system set up, which we've done lots of meetings before. But when we complemented it with Miro, and we were taking snapshots of post-its and everything and just putting it on the board, they really felt like they were part of the workshop rather than just observing. So that was the biggest compliment for this, I think.
Yeah, that's good to hear. So setting the stage to contribute with each other, to be together. And actually talking about narrative and also about whiteboards, maybe do a quick check-in with Piera on how things are going over there, because I think if you talk about adding narrative to a meeting, this idea of visual recording is also a key element, or can help there, I think. Piera, can you also?
Yeah, hello everyone.
A bit more?
So as you can see, I'm trying to bring some fun into this meeting. So I would like to add narrative and also engagement is very important. And that's where we can use visualization to really engage the participant and align them, because alignment is also very important in this kind of meeting. It's something that has come out also here. So really understanding what is the purpose and understanding what is the tools we're going to use in order to achieve that purpose. And then I will use visualization to create engagement and also create alignment among what has been done and has been said in the workshop, and what is also the final outcome. So what we have agreed on and what we have achieved.
And what's your experience in terms of impact of doing visual recording, either live in a meeting or afterwards as a result?
Yeah, I think it works very well for alignment, especially if you have 15, 16 participants in the same meeting that are discussing very broad topics, and each one of them has to take, we all have to agree on the same decision in order to go on on the next step of the project. So it's very effective using visualization in these meetings, so that everything that has been said in the meeting is visualized, and what is visualized is what has been agreed on. And so if somebody doesn't agree on what has been visualized, then he will say it, because he sees what you are drawing or what you're writing. And so it will be like, hey, no, yes, maybe, yeah, I didn't mean that, or we should do it in another way. So I think that has been, from my experience, the most powerful thing, like create alignment and take decisions. Sometimes, especially for the kind of project we do, it's very difficult to put all the stakeholders together and agree on the next steps.
Cool. Yeah, I recognize that also. So making things concrete and tangible, which helps to make a decision or to make sure that everyone's on the same page.
Yes.
Nice to hear. Very nice to see also the progress you're making. So we'll do it at the wrap up. We'll come back to you to see the result also. Miguel, maybe you can reflect a bit on what people have so far given us inputs into the discussion, also, well, specifically for the idea of hybrid meetings.
Yeah, sure. So I see that, yeah, there's some people who do it daily, some weekly, some monthly. More than any other category, people don't do it at all. I think there's some resonance with what Ieva was saying in terms of turning the camera on, so you're not just looking at, an avatar or an icon. I also saw in the Zoom chat that some people would say, yeah, no more hybrid meetings. So either everyone be remote, and it's also in line with this first comment. So either everyone be remote, or do the meeting in person, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I guess this is also a good point to perhaps go into the questions. I saw there were a couple of them.
Yeah, let's maybe before, yeah, we can do that. There's one aspect that also triggered me as we were talking with Pierre, and also I think Eva referred to it, is we've been talking a lot about the productivity of meetings, but there's also the fun or creative element to it. Alex, is there anything that you think is crucial there? Or
I think it's the energy in meetings is crucial. If you're having a boring meeting and people zone out, or if you're having a meeting where two people end up in a discussion where the rest is just thinking, okay, well, I don't know what's going to happen here, and you sort it out and let me know how it finishes. I think energy is what does it all. And to just quickly go back to the last point, I think systems are a means to an end, and it's about creating a connection around people. And if for you it works to have hybrid meetings, then by all means have hybrid meetings. And if you're like Pablo and you don't want to have those hybrid meetings, make sure that your colleagues know that and don't have those hybrid meetings, because I think it's important that you find the best way to connect with the people in your organization or in your family or any way you're using the system. I think it's about finding that connection, and the connection, you need the right energy to get there.
Mm-hmm. And then at what point is the focus on productivity sort of conflicting with the idea of also having a fun meeting? Do you notice sometimes that these can contradict or conflict with each other?
I don't really see it as a conflict, but when everybody's focused on the same thing, it tends to get a little bit easier. I mean, for example, I've been quite well behaved today. I haven't sworn or done anything, but that's a bit of an icebreaker if I do a workshop and I swear 5 times in the first 5 minutes, and everybody's okay. So it's an easy one today. So I think everybody's got their own icebreaker, and I think to have a dedicated space at the start and the end of the meeting, it doesn't have to be a check-in, check-out, because that can also get a bit autonomous and people just pass it off. And especially in remote video meetings when everybody's muted and they have to check in. So they fumble around unmuting themselves just to say check in and then turn it off again. So that doesn't translate that well to video conferencing, basically.
Yeah, okay. So, but then I think there's also a role for tools like Miro or others where you can find different ways for people to check in without spending too much time on making the whole round, maybe.
The timer helps.
Also, yes, indeed.
And if that can be linked to an agenda as well, people know that maybe you're going to get a break in the middle and you've only got 5 minutes for this task. That all helps to structure it.
Okay, true. Okay.
And I think fun is a byproduct rather than something to aim for.
And if I can add on that,
yep.
I would say, there's a good saying, a freedom within the frame. So you have, when we do something, we have a frame, and we know when within that frame, some fun can be achieved. And I agree with Dan. It's not the product; it's just natural thing. A natural thing that comes out from maybe achievement of the cooperation, maybe achievement of really great planning, or maybe just humorous and humility, like in the meeting. That's crucial. If you are going in the meeting in general, I think you have to be natural. You have to bring the humor, the sense of humor. That's always a good tool to have, despite all the technology that we have around. And I think it's also good to have a positive attitude. So if you are walking to the meeting, be positive about that, and co-create, co-collaborate, update, whatever it is, whatever setup or purpose of that meeting is.
Yeah, which comes back then to again owning the meeting and making sure that if you attend a meeting that you are prepared for it, that you want to go there, and that it's clear why you're there.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Good. Okay, there's lots more to talk about, but I'm also curious to see if there's any questions from the audience. So Miguel, maybe did you already?
Full disclosure, I haven't had a look at these yet because I was aiming the camera at the right place. So yeah, first question: will you be sharing the sports after the session? So I think we've asked also the Buenos Aires service design gems if they would like to share theirs. More details will follow.
So one is, I think, on this idea as a template.
Exactly.
Yes,
in the Miroverse.
Looking into that, and in terms of results of this session, we'll of course also share.
Yeah. There was a question about how templates could help with hybrid meetings?
Alex, do you have a
And templates in terms of
I suppose Miro templates could be, or in a physical sense, perhaps canvases or.
Tough to answer from my perspective. I think in general you have to make, as I said, systems are a means to an end. I think it starts with asking the right questions to each other and having the right answers. And I think the system and templates can help as long as you're on board altogether on what you want to achieve.
Yeah.
I think on this point, I would like to add, I think there is a lot to explore still, since we are entering these hybrid meetings. I think there is a lot of room for innovation and how to really transform a digital space into a physical one. I think there is still a lot to think about and improve, but there is space for that, I think.
I think we use, I think it's down to technology again. Like when you get back into the office and there's multiple people maybe in a, a huddle room rather than these big conferences, because we've still got these distancing laws. So you're probably going to see a lot of people dialing in from their desk in an open plan office, a couple of people in one room, a couple of people in the other. And like when we last did that, we've got these different conferencing systems that don't work with our in-house one that we were really pushing right now, that everybody's been using when it's been remote. And it just didn't work very well. When you've got two people with their own laptops, with their own mics and their own sound, it's kind of complicated. You either get an echo or you get disruptions, and the time we saved from being remote is going to get kind of broken down once we get back to the office. You're going to get different situations. So noise cancellation, screen sharing, this kind of thing is going to be a big factor, I think.
good point? Yeah.
And when it comes to templates, I think like breakout rooms has been the biggest pain for us. Like if you start on a Miro board from one room and then you break into different rooms and then trying to still message people when to come back, it's kind of complicated. You still have to fall back on things like Slack and WhatsApp to control this thing.
Good point. And I think indeed the idea of templates or of exercises is relevant in both physical and the virtual meetings. I think they can be very helpful in guiding people through some certain steps or triggering, uncovering ideas and inspiration. And I think pros and cons on both the virtual and the physical side.
It's always good to have a few tricks up your sleeve, I think, when you're having a meeting and you realize that there's something happening in the session where you need to break the ice or you need to do something to break a pattern that's been evolving. Then it's always good to have a few exercises you can bring in.
And again, it ties to the fact that we have to consider all these effects of technology or effects of preparation. Would you sit in one meeting room with 3 laptops? It's obvious you will get the echo. So that's where it comes to preparation. So considering how we can handle these situations, maybe then there's a one laptop or some other solution, So again, a preparation is in my observation is crucial to handle these situations. And we always, there's no one technology that solves all problems. We always fall back to, Hangouts, Slack, or something else to facilitate the meeting, or the lead of the meeting will facilitate the flow of whole content.
Good point. Yeah.
I think if you have the preparation down, you also have more brain space to actually be in a meeting and actually see, okay, what's the reaction, the visual reaction that someone on the opposite side of the camera or table is giving me, and how do I want to respond to that? And if you have that confidence, then you're also easier to sort of walk away with a good meeting.
Yes, exactly. Agree.
Yeah, true.
Good. Okay, in view of time of this meeting, let's have one final question, Miguel, if there's still a relevant one.
I think we covered all of them. I noticed one person was unable to log into Zoom, so I'm really sorry about that.
Oh.
But yeah, I think we covered most of them.
Good to hear. Okay. Then I actually have then one final question for all of us, so the panel and also the audience. And indeed, Miguel, you're already focusing on it. So having discussed all these elements, different topics related to making meetings more productive, different techniques, but also adding the fun and the creative sides. Would you consider running a good meeting more an art or a science? And I already see people in the middle. I actually would like to force people to make a choice. So which is it more? And Ieva, if we can start with you.
Yeah, I will be very honest with you. It's the art and the science. I mean, the best scientists are the artists. So you have to get the data. You have to gather, analytics. You have to get the feedback from people from every single meeting. That's why I gave the example. We cancel stand-ups on the UX team just because I gathered with the feedback and information that it didn't work. So this is where analytical science part comes. And then artist is now you have to create environment, you have to create the meeting and its creation. So it's being artistic and sometimes improvising during the meeting as a lead of the meeting or as a member of the meeting. You are part of the creation process, I would say. It's like it's a creation process. That's how it goes.
Cool. Very, very nice. I'm not sure, Alex or Dan, if you can add some other perspectives there. Alex, starting with you.
I'm gonna say neither. I've compared it in my preparation to a good conversation to my wife. I think that's what a meeting is all about. It's being like fully trusting the people you're in a meeting with, being able to have a conflict and come out of it at the end of the conflict, knowing that you've grown as people, but also as a company, and being able to sort of push yourself to new limits of growth as a person. And I think if I look at my conversations with my wife, I think those have helped me grow so much more than sort of the frustration meetings. And if I can apply those sort of aspects to my business meetings, and I believe that you can grow a lot more.
Cool. And do you also have video calls with your wife, or?
Definitely, yeah.
And then you?
I'm going to say it depends on your role. If it's running a good meeting, it's more of a science because you have to structure it, you have to plan it. Maybe you run the same thing once or twice, so you iterate, improve. But I think if you're participating, then it's more of an art. You've got more freedom, you can bring your own personal tastes, influences. And that's what makes a good meeting. It's a good mix of both, I think.
Cool. Good to hear. Okay, difficult to make a choice, I notice. Okay, so to wrap up, Piera, can you maybe very briefly show us
Yes.
the preliminary results of, okay, I can already see it's very impressive.
Is it an idea if I stop sharing the screen for a minute so we get Piera in full screen?
Yeah. So I think, the main thing that came out is that preparation first is very important. It's about preparing what are the topics that are going to be discussed and what is the timing of the agenda, but also understanding what is the purpose of the meeting. So understanding if it's a meeting for alignment, it's a meeting for ideation, so we want to achieve an outcome, and understanding that every participant needs to have a role in order to be part of the meeting and don't feel frustrated to be invited to another meeting. So prepare topic, agenda, own the meeting, that's very important, and understand also what is the purpose in order to structure what the activity will be. And I think if we think about the hybrid between physical meetings and digital meetings, but in general, how to run a meeting, we need to design an environment that is natural, where everybody feels comfortable, where everybody feels good. And this, if we think about digital meetings, we need to find the right tools to do that. And so again, finding the right tools means also understanding what is the purpose of the meeting. And this tool that at the end, it's all about collaboration. So these are tools that have to enable collaboration. And in order to also get that collaboration, we have to build a narrative. And Miro, it's a great tool to achieve this purpose, of course. And we want everybody to be engaged, to be energized, and to be connected, because we want to collaborate. And in order to collaborate, we need people to connect and co-create together. So yeah, some tips I like is have always exercise you can bring in case there is some problem or you see that the energy is going down. Have some exercise in the backlog, and have space and time to check in at the beginning and at the end, so that you can really bring people and create alignment again with all the participants. And running effective meeting, it's art, science. I think both. There are different opinions. For sure, the art aspect is to create the right environment, and visualization and creativity can really help in that. And yes, the science is to create the right structure, to have the good rhythm and the good topic to really create engagement among all the participants.
Thanks, Pierre. That's a great summary and very impressive result also. So to the audience, we'll make sure that we'll share this also afterwards, including together with the board. So thanks a lot for this, Pierre, for visually recording the session. Also thanks to the panel members, of course, Alex, Dan, and Ieva. Very nice perspectives, very good insights. As a thank you, we'll send you this very effective tool for making sure that you have effective and productive meetings. Some of you are already aware or know this one, but at least it helped me in this case.
Hold it up to the webcam for the whole meeting. Do I have to hold it up to the webcam the whole meeting?
Yeah, indeed. Well, it is a magnetic, so you can put it on a magnetic or on a board. There's one final question I wanted to ask, but we don't have time to address it now. I think that maybe you can follow up on that. Okay, this was a meeting in itself, so what could we have done better in this case? And that's also a question to the audience. So if you still are in the board, you can stay there, and if you go to the top side of the house, or the lounge, you'll find some boards where you can leave comments and tips and tricks for us in terms of reflecting on this meeting, but also input for potential next events. If you would like to contribute, feel free to either reach out or to leave some comments here. We'll follow up. We'll also follow up with the results. Of course, also join the Miro user group itself if you want to stay up to date on new events and information, and reach out in case you have questions, ideas, or suggestions. That's it from our side. We didn't manage to end 5-1, but it is 1-1, so just in time to close the session. And thanks everyone for attending, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for hosting, everybody. Thanks.